Lizelle found modest success on YouTube as a cover singer. She then leveraged the success for TikTok and Instagram, where she had over 14,000 followers. Instagram was her main way of getting in touch with her audience. Every so often, there are creeps who send her indecent proposals or underwhelming pictures of certain body parts. Her family was always supportive of her career, even though she was quite new to it. Coming from a rich bloodline who had investments in prime real estate, her parents were happy to book her into nice resorts or fancy home rentals. On the day she finally hit 15,000 subscribers, she was in a cozy little beach shack rental home. She received a nice package of swimwear and sunglasses from her parents. They were wrapped in a nice little paper bag with letters congratulating her. Of course, she made a reaction video to the gifts. She pointed the camera at the boxes, passed through the address and the note she got from her mom, dad, and aunt. She reminded her Instagram followers to tune in for live updates on her free day swimming at the nearby beach. Maybe she will try surfing, she said. Then, she called it a day, went back to her rental place, and just watched YouTube and Netflix all night while eating a nice vegetarian meal. She felt a bit uneasy while she was watching a nice romantic comedy film. She heard what sounded like footsteps in the kitchen. She immediately got up to check on it. She peeked at the kitchen, and there was nobody there. She laughed at her silliness, thinking it was just her imagination, and went back to watching. An hour into the film, she got really sleepy and bored. It was already 9 in the evening, so she just abruptly used her remote to turn on the TV. But then, the TV went off. She could clearly see the reflection of someone. The TV revealed a hooded figure, taking a video of her just behind her. She turned around, and the creepy man, who looked ragged, wretched, and had red eyes, maybe because of drugs, stared at her. His hands deep in his pockets. He says he just wants to talk. She screamed instead. He brings out his hand, and it is holding a small pocket knife. She runs for it. The guy tells her he just wants to talk, over and over. He says he's a fan, while running after her with a knife. She manages to go up the stairs to the second floor, but he is able to grab onto her foot, making her fall. She kicks and kicks, but doesn't land any of it. She, however, is able to get free as the guy loses his balance. She quickly goes to her room and slams the door. She brings her phone out and calls the police. While she is speaking to the dispatcher, there is a loud thud on the door. The man is trying to break it down, and it is working. She gives the address to the dispatcher. She sees an open window and climbs out of it. She moved to a drain pipe and slowly slinks down. But as she gets to the bottom, she looks behind, and the guy is going down the stairs and can clearly see her through the window. She ran for her life. Then, she reached the neighbor's door. She vigorously knocks at the door, only to realize it's also a rental home, and there is no one there. When she turns around, the man is there, staring at her, dead on. He told her,
"Fine. I asked politely. All I want is to chat, and this is how you treat one of your loyal followers?"
He brandishes the knife. She she begs him not to kill her. He replied that killing is not his style. He just wants to play. Then, while she is screaming, he is dragging her, screaming through the empty rows of uninhabited houses, and tried to shove her into his car. Then, he sees it. The police coming around the bend. Instead of shoving her in, he goes into his car and tries to escape. But on the other end of the street, there is another police car. In the ensuing investigation, it becomes clear that this supposed fan has created a fantasy world in which they are together. He was isolated and neglected and had made her the center of his world. There have been so many cases of deranged fans like this in the past. He traveled 2 states just to see her. What Azelle didn't know was that she inadvertently gave her location away when she took pictures and videos of her gifts. The address of her rental home was visible if you paused the video. Lizelle's Instagram account has now vanished. She now understands the value of her own privacy.
These roads are a pain to drive on,
thought Mick, glad he had equipped the car's tires with chains. Mick and Nina always love the cold and the snow, but not when it is this thick.
How far is it? It's getting hard to see,
pointed out his wife, Nina, growing concerned at the big white clouds looming above.
Just a bit more, it's worth it, I swear. No one's been to this place in ages. There's no house or town for miles. We will have our peace and quiet here, you know. There, I think I see it,
he said, pointing further up the mountain, on the end of the path, cutting through the trees. The dirt road, long having stopped being made of asphalt, made it difficult to drive, and more so, to park. As they near the isolated wooden lodge, they go down the car and looked around.
Is that normal?
Nina is looking at some trees on the side of the road. The bare trees look like they were violently cut in half.
Maybe it's the snowstorm,
Mick said.
Snowstorms don't have claws,
Nina replied. Mick is now looking at a long claw-shaped gash on another tree.
You're overthinking this,
he replied. They entered the lodge, shaking the snow off his shoes as he closed the door behind. He sniffed the air loudly, lifting his head and closing his eyes.
The smell of wood never gets old.
He looked around, noticing the dust on the floors wasn't as bad as they anticipated. The couches by the fireplace, covered in plastic sheets, to avoid getting them dirty, looked fairly clean too.
How about you put on some stew while I clean around?
He asked his wife, feeling hungry already. Opening the closet in the bathroom, he quickly found what he was looking for. Taking up an old ragged broom, he closed the closet door, revealing the bathroom window behind it. There was movement outside. A shadow.
Must have been my imagination,
he thought, and went to clean the house. Smelling the veggies and meat boiling, he took a look in the kitchen.
How's the stew?
Mick asked, to get her attention.
Well, it's still stewing. How's the cleaning?
She asked back, with a bit of sass in her voice.
Clean, I'd say,
the man said, smiling, going back to his task while looking at the floor. The meal was nice,
warming them up to the bone, and they enjoyed it while watching the snowfall right out the window.
I wish the kids were here with us,
she said while sipping her soup. You know how it is. They're not kids anymore. They're all married. Kids grow up and they must leave the nest. Lowering his head as he took another sip. Something outside the window moved in the trees.
What?
Asked Nina, noticing the alert state of her husband.
Thought I saw something. Anyway.
A scratching sound. The sound of nails running over wood, like claws of a bear trying to rip the door away. After a bit, it stopped, leaving them puzzled. Just as they hoped it was over, a crashing noise, like that of shattering glass, erupted in the living room. Mick getting up, his adrenaline rushing like crazy. He took hold of a chair as he went to check what the ruckus was. Horrified by what he found, he saw it. Standing at over 7 feet high and crouching to fit under the ceiling, the hairy, naked thing had shapes closer to that of a monkey than to a human, despite the mostly naked skin. Hair jagged and irregular, coating the entire neckless head down to his shoulders. This dark-skinned simian was looking away as Mick entered the living room. He looked back at his wife, mouthing "run" to her, before moving sideways to try and get to the exit without alerting whatever this thing was. He gets his gun from the wall as his wife moved very slowly. This horrid thing had to turn his entire torso in order to face the man, forcing him at a weird angle. His enormous lips extended in an O expression of surprise. The two jet-black eyes were fixated on Mick as the creature held his hand out, pale blood bleeding out of it. He must have gotten cut while breaking through the glass.
Run, Nina! Run!
Screamed Mick, lifting the chair towards the thing as his wife ran behind him as best as she could, opening the door and going outside. In a flash, the massive ape was running towards Mick. He grabs the chair and tries to put it between him and the creature. Mick was desperately trying to keep the chair in between him and the awful beast. He felt his feet sliding back on the floor as the thing pushed, the weight of the creature being too much for him to stop. He tossed the chair in the face of the ape, forcing it to dodge. He manages to get outside and lock the creature inside. In dismay, he looked at his scar, entirely covered in snow, unusable, as the noise of glass could be heard again from the other side of the property. They had no choice but to hide. Running to the forest, their legs sinking up to the knee at each step, they heard the heavy steps of something inching closer. As they rounded their way behind a tree, Mick tried to shoot it, but he missed. The awful creature getting closer, they caught their breath before running deeper in the forest. They managed to hide behind some bushes. Mick aims at the creature's head. It looked like a confused child, wandering in the forest.
Don't, just let it go,
Nina whispers. Mick shoots the creature on the head. It falls. The creature lies dying in the ground,
its eyes slowly closing. But just before its last breath, the elderly couple stood up. They looked around, relieved. But then, the ground starts rumbling underneath them. The big stone started to move, revealing limbs coming from under them. This creature is so much bigger, towering over them. They stumbled right into their nest. The two held hands one last time. She kissed him and said, "Thank you for everything." As the giant rose up above them, raised a giant fist, and smashed the ground. Printed all over the newspapers were the faces of the elderly couple. No one ever found the lodge or their bodies. Their kids didn't even bother asking where they were going. And now, they will never know the truth about what happened that cold winter day. Influencers have a really bad rep in the service industry, particularly in hotels where I work at the desk. My boss, Amy, not her real name, had a strict policy of ignoring their requests. However, there was this one male surfer, Look, who frequented our hotel, and she basically paid for his room by a personal credit card. Odd. This guy had just about 24,000 followers on his Instagram, where he keeps on publishing daily videos of him hanging by the poolside or on the beach. I had always suspected something was going on between him and Amy, but I never had definitive proof, nor do I feel like I should poke my nose in other people's business. Of course, my only worry is that Amy is happily married with 3 kids, though I never met her husband. I heard rumors from my co-workers that Amy got in touch with a guy when she saw his Instagram and he took pictures from our hotel. He was eating at the restaurant in the 2nd floor. Since then, he had been a regular, with Amy treating him to a free stay. Luck checked in one Thursday afternoon once again. The guy was about my age, 24, and once again, the room was already paid for. I was glad to have the bellboy escort him to his room, his usual room, 1214. It always struck me as odd that he kept booking the same room, but it does no good to speculate. Around 30 minutes later, I saw Amy walk through the door of the hotel, said hi to me, and then go up the elevator without another word. Okay. Then, the front desk phone rang. It was an outside call. The voice on the other line said, "Hi, I would like to call room 1214, please." He was very polite and sounded like a professional. Of course, the standard next question is, "What is the name of the guest you would like to speak with?" He gave the full name of Look. Check. Then I asked who is on the line. He said he would prefer not to say it. I said as per hotel policy, we can't transfer his call to a room unless he gives us his name. Then, he just hung up. That was strange, but it didn't amount to much, so I just ignored it. A few hours later, as it is starting to get dark outside, we get a late reservation to a room. There is a suite in 1201, the same floor where Look is staying. It was a name I've never seen before, but the credit card data checks out, so I approved the transaction. And after an hour, he came to check in. The man was a tall guy wearing business attire. If you were to judge him purely on his clothes, There was nothing suspicious. However, up close, he looked angry and anxious. Think eye bags and red eyes. His breath smelled of alcohol, and he was very fussy, rushing the entire check-in process. I called Jamie, the bellboy, to pick up the man's luggage and load it to the cart. As they leave, I had a really bad feeling about this guy, so I picked up my handheld transceiver, or walkie-talkie, as some people call it, and spoke to our security guy. He said he's attending to a small altercation in the poolside, but once that's done, he'd be happy to do a sweep of the 12th floor where the suspicious man is staying. He asked me if there was any real cause for concern, and I said no, I might just be a bit paranoid. A female guest came and said she was planning to go out. She asked me to keep her room key and requested me to book a cab for her. So I did. While I was busy chatting with the guard, the walkie-talkie started blaring with the panicked voice of the bellboy. He was incoherent, but the one word I heard him shout was, "Help." I told the lady that there's an emergency that I had to attend to, and the old lady was very understanding. Bless her. I ran to the elevators, and once I got in, I started talking to our security guy. He quickly understood and said he is coming. I anxiously wait for the elevator to arrive at the 12th floor, and when the doors finally opened, I saw the poor bellboy crouched on the side. He's got a gun, he says. I asked where the guy was. He said the man pulled a gun on him and told him to give him the key to 1214. Then, he heard gunshots. I wanted to check inside the room, but my instinct to stay safe was stronger than my curiosity. We heard 2 more shots. The other elevator door opens, and the security guy comes in, and he informs me that the police are on their way. Security in this country is typically unarmed. He only has pepper spray and a baton. The man goes outside to the hall, his body covered in blood, and he is holding a gun. There is a short pause in which he looks at us, teary-eyed, and the security man gets ready to spray him. He asks the guest to lower his weapon. Then, the man spoke. He said, in the most weird, polite way, "Gentlemen, I am very sorry for the distress that my personal issues have caused you. I am also very sorry about the cleaning. You may charge my card. I just had to do this." The security guy tells him once again to put the gun down, but instead, he puts it in his mouth and blows his own brains off. Some of the blood found its way to my face. We sat there in shock. I rushed to room 1214, worried about what I might find, and sure enough, my fears were realized. There, in the bed, the young man was swimming in a pool of his own blood, multiple bullet wounds in his body, some of Amy's clothes strewn all over the floor. The following days were ones of mourning, despair, and cover-ups. A month later, I quit my job. I couldn't stay in that hotel anymore. I couldn't shake off the feeling that if I had refused this man's booking, that if I had known that it was Amy's husband, I could have prevented this. But sadly, when people commit these crimes, they don't think of those who are scarred by it permanently, as I was, and I still am. I've never liked Instagram. I've had many horror stories with their influencers. Nothing as dramatic as this. This poor guy faked his lifestyle for the gram, and paid the ultimate price.